Hey guys, I'm Alexey Kravitsky. I'm a certified Scrum trainer and enterprise Scrum coach. And I would like to share with you some of the practices or ideas that I've been accumulating while working with the product owners and the development teams, helping them to understand how to actually work with requirements and backlogs in an agile environment in Scrum. So I'm gonna focus on one particular topic today, which is bigger picture versus smaller picture, right? And let me explain you that with an example. I usually run a class on this topic, like a workshop, and then I ask people to do the following. I ask them to take a piece of paper and a pen or something to write on, and then I'm giving you requirements that I would like them to implement. And I tell them the following. The first piece of requirement is please draw like a wall, and on the wall a frame and some kind of a picture on the right side of your piece of paper. They might ask some clarification question like, is it a portrait or landscape? I said it's a landscape picture. Doesn't really matter what's on the picture. Something really blurry is there, and it has a wooden frame. Well, everybody kind of draws the frame. And then I give them my second piece of requirement and say, okay, on the left side of the picture, just add another one similar to it, similar size, similar proportions. Well, they just do it. They say it's that simple. And actually, that's simple. And then I give them the third piece of requirement. I say, okay, and now a bit of a closer to the viewer of the picture, you need to add lips. And they're like, what kind of lips? Say, okay, ask me clarifying question. They said asking like what kind of lips? What's color? Are they real or are they plastic? What's that? I said, okay, let's forget the lips. Let's add some hair on the side. And they're like, man, what kind of hair is that? We're really confused now. You're like really fucked up in this workshop. Like, what do you mean? Well, and then I'm showing them the picture that actually I had in mind. This is this one. And of course, you all know this picture from Dali Museum, right? And then, well, after everybody see the picture, then they can actually close that picture anymore, close even their eyes. And when I say draw nose, draw lips, draw hair, add hair, they would actually add it without asking for actually too many clarification about these particular requirements, which size of lips, how big the lips, because they had what? They had a bigger picture. So that's the metaphor or something I would like you to remember. If people haven't looked or realized or understood the bigger picture, they will ask all kinds of clarifications about requirements, about smaller requirements, and those clarifications actually don't add too many clarity to the process, because you still need to see the bigger picture to be able to understand the smaller requirements. Yeah, so in this small recording, I would like to explain you that actually bigger picture and small picture, it's not either or. It's not a false dichotomy. You need to have both. You need to have a bigger picture of what we're building, and you need to have a smaller picture. And that goes just not for product vision or release vision. It goes for basically every feature you are building. And I'd like to explain how you can actually manage backlogs and backlog refinement sessions with having two things, bigger picture and the small doable requirements in place. So let's dive in. I will draw you something on my iPad. Okay, so where do we start? Let's start from the beginning, right? You are getting some big requirement from your stakeholders, right? A product owner and development team working together. I don't really bother who is doing that. I'm sure actually, I do believe it's a joint effort of people who are interested in building right products. So they got this big piece of requirement, which is probably need to fit it, probably will take multiple sprints or iterations. So that for that reason, it needs to be broken down into more atomic items that some people call user stories, although they're just smaller items on your backlog. So on your backlog, you can have larger items and you have small items, right? And typically we say, well, it's a process. Well, you need to be able to do two things. You need to be able to do, of course, development of those small items. If you work in Scrum, like in sprints, right? In the end of the sprint, you'll get these smaller requirements implemented. And in parallel, you need to do the following process. You need to be able to continuously refine the big items so that they are broken down into smaller ones and the details are added. So this is basically this is not two phases, two stages. These are two continuous processes which need to happen in a good, healthy product development. And of course, product owner and the team, they both should be involved into these activities. So now the question is, how do you break down the big item without losing the details? So these items here, which are smaller ones, they will be paintings on the wall, the eyes, the lips, the nose. But how do you make sure people actually have this bigger thing? Well, maybe some of you have already figured that out. It took me quite a while. I'm a slow guy. That's why I try to make videos really precise and clear, because this is how my brain works. Like hard is hard for me. Simple is good enough for me. So like, how do you actually do it? And typically you would have some kind of a backlog management tool. Some people use Jira, whatever you use. All of them are bad, okay? Because why? Well, for the lots of reasons. I have another video. I can probably link it to this one, why I hate Jira so much. But you need to use some kind of a tool to manage your term that can be Google spreadsheet. Probably that's the less evil of the tools you can have. But how do you keep this bigger picture and a smaller picture? So what I typically recommend two things. I recommend having some kind of a document which will be accumulating all the details, all the diagrams, all the nitty-gritty checklists, anything that you are learning about this bigger item. Yes, and in Scrum, typically it's recommended that you have this process called PBR, protocol refinement. Typically, teams will have regular meetings where they invite different stakeholders. Well, one stakeholder is interested in this item, another stakeholder is interested in this item, and on this regular product backlog refinement sessions, you would invite, of course, the entire team, product owner, optional, not optional, up to you, but of course, people from the outside who can help the team learn about these requirements. And all these meetings, you actually try to refine, right? What do you mean by refining? Well, you try to describe the bigger picture, right? So what is it, the guys that you really want, you business guys, right? Why? So you are trying to understand the business needs, the customer needs. Hopefully they have already done some homework, so they really know like why they need it. If not, you probably will go into more details about how did they learn that it's needed and why actually do they believe it's a very important item. But then you start asking clarifying questions, and you will basically be breaking down this bigger item in a smaller item. I typically recommend doing this at a whiteboard. Well, these days at a lockdown, you can do it on a mirror board too. So I recommend doing the following. This big item is just this big black hole. Right? If you put a team on that, they will never come back from it, right? So it's a black hole. Nothing comes back from it. So I know. Let's say this whole thing is a payment capability of your website, and this black hole here represent this payment capability. It's too big, right? It needs to be broken down. It needs to be refined and clarified. So what you do, you break out some small items from it. They're still black holes and black boxes because you still don't know what's inside, but you can say, well, this is a MasterCard, this is Visa card, this is PayPal, okay? And now, after a discussion, you have realized, okay, let's focus on MasterCard because we are based on the market where this card is the most important one, for instance, to start with. And then you start breaking down this item into small items, and as you break them down, you get more clarity, and they basically go from being black holes to being something you kind of No, right? And then they can be broken down into small items with very good clarity about them. So you can actually visualize this with the different solid colors inside these bubbles. But basically, it's a metaphor. I use this bubble metaphor. I'll link my article on why backlogs actually are good bubbles in my opinion. But basically on these workshops you break the stuff down, you discuss priorities of sub items, and you add details. And if you do it without keeping track of the bigger picture, in the end you'll end up having backlog with like dozens or hundreds, in the worst case, of small items, lips, hairs and stuff. Nobody really understands what the bigger picture is. So this is my tip. If you use Atlassian tool belt, you use a Confluence, right? So any wiki tool is great for storing a bigger picture. So open up this page, and this page will grow, right? It will grow from one refinement meeting to the other. So like I drew here this process of backlog refinement, right? Well, it's a process which is continuous, right? And one big item, probably it's not enough just to take it to one refinement session. You probably need to groom on it, sit on it for multiple iterations of refinement. So every time when you refine this item again, you pull up this Wikipedia, your wiki, a page, and you remind yourself of the bigger picture, and then you add these details. And if you follow my advice to visualize that stuff as bubbles, well, you can embed some kind of a bubble diagram in here, and then you know where you left off last time and where you can continue refining next. But this will be, basically, this is like a specification. Like we don't really like the word specification in Agile because, well, we don't like them. Because if you just hand out somebody a specification without him being involved in the process of understanding and building up the specification, they'll be confused. But specifications are good if they serve as a reminder of a discussion happened before. So I have nothing against great specifications if people really grew them over time and added details and agreements to them. So this becomes your specification, which you grew over time doing these multiple refinement sessions. And then, of course, you break things down, and then new items on your backlog will be emerging, will emerge, these small items, these leaves of your bubble diagram, like MasterCard and some parts of the MasterCard implementation. But what's good? It's good to link those items, all of them, back to this initial bigger picture. So any new team member or somebody who's joining you to work on that particular small user story or small item on your backlog still can refer to the bigger picture and understand how the small item fits onto the bigger picture. Okay, I'm working on the little hair, but why hair? Okay, it's a daily picture with eyes and lips and stuff and hair. Okay, so now I'm working on the lips. It's very important for the developers to understand the bigger picture. Well, because why? Well, a very important thing to know, developers make a lot of decisions which no manager, no product owner can control. And those decisions are tiny. So I typically ask a question, what's the smallest decision developer makes? What is the most atomic decision people make when they write code? It's line of code, right? You cannot commit anything less than a change in a line of code. So line of code is a decision. And every change in each line of code is this decisions developers do. So in a good day, developers writes, changes a few hundred lines of codes in a good day. This is 200 decisions they make, which nobody actually can control so much. People can influence them, right? But if your developer doesn't have good understanding of the bigger picture, those decisions might be just off. Maybe we've been working on the hair, but he did it like too much, or maybe the hair was off, or maybe did the hair with wrong color. So if they don't understand the bigger picture and the details, the decisions they make will tend to be off, and then actually the bigger picture will not combine anymore. It will be like a Frankenstein rather than a room in a Dali museum. So that's why in discussion of every user story, it's good to have these links back to the larger thing. And this larger thing, which I call specification or page on your wiki, it will be stored there forever. It becomes your internal documentation for how feature works, why it's there, what's the status, and then you can do lots of other integrations with source code and stuff, which maybe you don't even need to do, but it's good to have it. And then maybe next year or next release, when you need to rework on your payment, well, you have this nice bigger picture thing, and then you can start adding it. Maybe for the next generation of this feature, you create another page, and it will be a payment generation 2 page where you describe all the changes you're doing there. But it's good to have a bigger picture and a smaller picture, and one doesn't work without the other. That's basically the lesson I would like to give to you today, and it took me several years to come to that. So you just guys got it in 12 minutes, so you should be happy for now. That was Alexei Krivitsky. Stay tuned. I'll be posting more stuff like that one pretty soon. Enjoy your good days and stay safe and wash your hands. Ciao.